So let me just start by asking you what Delterra and Hero are, including the origin of the project Hero.
Delterra is an NGO. It was funded by McKinsey & Company in 2019. The objective is to solve systemic environmental challenges. Waste management is a system, and it is the first challenge, the first program that the organization decided to take on through the Rethinking Recycling program. And in Spanish, it translates to Integrated Waste Management for the city of Olavarría. So it was given a name that can then obviously associate with the local community and continue over time.
About the Project Hero, can you tell us a little bit more about the key components of the project?
As we said, we look at systemic challenges. So we look at the entire value chain of waste. This includes laws. It includes behavior change to ensure that both households and businesses separate their waste as requested. It entailed developing a new collection system, because before in Olavarría, all the waste was mixed together. Of course, once households and businesses start separating their waste, you then need a new collection system that doesn't mix the waste again. It entailed building the infrastructure for recovering the sorted materials, both the dry, but also compost. And then as we go beyond and we continue on the value chain, we start going into the demand side. So what happens to those materials once they've been recovered and separated? We of course need to find a market for them. So it entails recycling, what can be recycled, what cannot be recycled. We tied agreements with a local cement company to make refuse-derived fuel that can be used to make cement in a furnace. We're looking at end markets for the organic material that we are producing, or compost that is being produced. So it entails really the entire value chain, and there are dedicated specialists and teams looking at every part of the value chain, as well as the softer competencies or aspects, if I may say so, of building competencies within the municipality. So the city of Olavarría didn't have a waste management department. They are now moving towards that organizational setup. They now have specific laws regulating waste management and a better control over the budget and the strategy that is related.
So what are the key lessons that you have learned from the initial pilot phase?
Our learnings from the pilots is, first of all, that it is very important to know and learn, discover your community. There is no silver bullet that will work everywhere. Different people react to different stimuli, and it is therefore very important to do something called user-centered design, to really investigate by focus groups and people to understand what it will take for them to participate in this type of project and this system. Another learning is certainly the value that private sector competencies can bring to traditionally public sector services, such as environmental management as a whole, or waste management more specifically. So the team responsible for behavior change, many of them come from the private sector, from marketing. And some of them were before designing campaigns to convince people to buy a certain product. Well, we are applying those same concepts to get people to separate their waste, for example. So I think these are some of the main learnings from the pilot, as well as the important to develop a range of potential solutions and not just a single way. We have not found one single stimulus or aspect that will convince people to separate. We'll get to this later, I think, but we've realized that you need the face-to-face, you need the digital enablers and you need the mass communication as well.
Yeah, and maybe I could add, I think that's one thing that made the project very attractive for the Alliance. First of all, as Federico mentioned, the end-to-end nature of the project, that we're capturing all of the key elements when you're working with a city and with a community, from the basics of collection all the way through to the processing then of that of those end products of plastic waste. But again, also then the learning that goes into building the behavior change campaigns that are required for that kind of systemic change that's needed in a community. So indeed, those factors made the project very attractive for us, and certainly been borne out with the results that we've seen so far.
I watched a very good video of the Hero project, in which I saw there are a lot of posters used at the bus stops, and also the colorful notice on the waste cage in front of the household. Also, it talked about the use of chatbot, social media. I wonder if any one or two of those different interventions were more powerful, or they had to be done all together to have a synergetic effect.
Yes, the short answer is you need a combination, but it took us a while to realize that and to better really understand that. So what works best, and I've seen this in other countries as well, is the door-to-door, is the face-to-face interaction, is knocking on someone's door and asking them if they would like to separate, and if they have challenges, really helping them to get through these challenges, really accompanying them. Now, that is a logistical and economical nightmare, as I'm sure you can assume. Knocking on every door in a city is incredibly challenging, and of course, knocking on a door once is not enough. So, what we found through the pilots, we did 5 pilots. We figured out a sort of ideal mix. That is the bottom up, the face-to-face interaction, the posters and the magnets and the talking. That has bottom down, which is our mass communication. So we have a jingle on the radio, we do columns in the newspaper, we show up at TV programs, we do events in the squares, we put the posters as that you've seen in the city, and then there are these digital enablers as well. There's an Instagram page, a website, and the chatbot. The chatbot has been particularly useful. I think that the reminders part. There are certain days to collect recyclables, and so you get a little reminder on your phone saying don't forget to put your recyclables out tomorrow. So while door-to-door has proven to be the most effective, it is also the most challenging, and so needs to be adequately combined with other stimuli.
The next question. So we've covered some emerging technologies in the past webinar that can automatically sort different types of waste using sensors and AIs. So what do you think of this kind of technology's role vis-a-vis behavioral change, approaching a household one by one?
Thank you. That is a great question. We published a paper last year that it's called Making Sense, and it's spelled sense as in dollars, but it entails making sense of behavior change. And what we've proven, looking at data and the cost and everything, is that behavior change is the cheapest way to get more waste recycled in the end. There is a place for everything in waste management. Only getting people to separate is very difficult, and only getting technology to do the separation is not going to get you good results. So you need to come up with a good balance between how many different streams you can convince people to separate into.
Maybe I could add a little bit to that one as well, because when we look at the technologies that are available in terms of advanced sorting, what we're seeing is the ability to really segregate waste and different fractions of plastic waste to a degree that is quite incredible, right? Across all the different packaging types, all the different polymers involved, as well as the different application types as well. So what we see is a great combination of the behavior change that happens with a household segregation to at least get the recyclables into a separated receptacle, a bin, and then bringing those to an automated sorting plant. So as Federico mentioned, it absolutely has a place in a waste management system, and it can be very complementary.
In the last webinar, we had a guest panelist in the webinar that supports a city with the highest recycling rate in Japan at 83%. And in order to achieve that 83% of the recycling rate, the residents are required to separate the sort waste into 27 categories, which we all felt like, wow, that's quite a lot. How far do you think that the Hero project want to go towards that direction?
In Japan, have been hearing about the need to separate their waste for 30 plus years. Argentina, as we said earlier, most cities started separating their waste a couple of years ago. We have about only 25% of the material in Argentina is recyclable today. And that is if you collect every bottle, every can, and every piece of cardboard, which is a dream, of course. So the third stream enables us to unlock the value of that 50% of organic waste, but it also makes our recyclable waste cleaner. Because once we start separating once we ask people to add a third stream, we have also found that the dry recyclables then start becoming of a higher quality, and so you can then recycle more dry waste. So I think 3 is really the minimum. Hopefully we would like to introduce a 4th very soon. 4th is usually glass.
So what has been the support that you have received, and what has been the significance?
Well, I mean, the obvious, going beyond the obvious financial support, what has been incredible is the belief that we have received from the Alliance. This project took about 3 years to get implemented because, we had to build a MRF, a sorting center. There was nothing there. We had to create a new waste collection contract, a big contract for the city. We had to set up all the markets for the end products. We've had a few different project managers supporting us over the duration of the project, but all of them have been amazing. They've provided guidance, strategic guidance. Those that come from a more technical engineering background have provided technical support. They have visited the city when we needed to push the city on certain aspects. They came and they did their part. So really the continued support and belief in the project and the strategic and technical guidance.
What has been the motive or reason for the Alliance to support the Hero?
We need to get that waste collected from households, and ideally we want it in a segregated collection. And that's exactly what Delterra and the Hero project has delivered. So the project was very attractive, both in terms of its ambition, in terms of the end-to-end nature of it, but also it's important to look at the scale or the size of it, because it was of the right size where we could consider it a pilot. We had a higher chance of success because it was a relatively small city, and it allowed us to learn a tremendous amount. And one other factor I think that's quite important for this that we haven't touched upon was also the involvement of informal sector workers. So what we've seen at the beginning of the project were informal sector workers at the semi-managed landfill that exists in Oliveria, and the team at Delterra looked to bring them into a system, but on their own terms, right? To make sure that they were looked after and not disadvantaged through the implementation of this program. So the ability to involve informal sector workers who now have become employees of the new waste management system has been obviously very gratifying and a great model again of how we can support informal sector in waste management, as they are clearly the backbone of waste management in many parts of the world.
So for Federico, what has been the most satisfying things about the project so far?
If I may say so, like the one that Nick mentioned, when I first went to Olavarria, there were two families made of grandparents, parents, and children, separating waste in the landfill. So working in the rubbish. And today, those two families, not the children, of course, they are employees with health insurance and the pension scheme in the sorting center. The first year and a half, people would be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Whereas today, Hiro is a part of the community. It's in the bars, you hear it on the streets, you see people at the corner talking about recyclables. The city, the government is fully bought into the project. So what is really heartwarming is that the community has embraced it on their own terms, in this case as well. So Olavarria, the society perceives themselves as a modern innovator. And so what has really been the hook, the aspect that convinced them was, this is what innovative cities do, and this is what an innovative city should do also, to then be able to share this learning and set this example for other cities in Argentina and elsewhere in Latin America.
I think the way forward for me is really the opportunity to take these learnings and potentially apply them in other projects. We've been working very closely with the Delterra team to make sure we're capturing those learnings and to putting them in a framework that is easily absorbed by other communities. So I think we're looking forward to the potential next steps in Argentina, but also looking at this model as something that can be replicated elsewhere. The Delterra team is now active in one of our Brazilian cities to help apply the rethinking recycling model. And with that, we're seeing a first, I would say, opportunity to take it outside of Argentina and to support the intervention in the city where we can, I would say, make a difference in the capture of recyclable materials.
What are the other things that you plan to do in the future for the Hiro project?
For Hiro in particular is, well, we are now finishing the rollout to the entire city. We are still working on some of the end markets, particularly to ensure that as much dry recyclable can go to as fuel rather than going to the landfill. There is a law which was approved 2 years ago in Argentina that enables you to sell compost that you create through separately collected organic waste. This is potentially very appealing for a municipality, because not only can they save money by not buying chemical fertilizer or buying less chemical fertilizer, but if they can achieve this certification, they can then sell the compost. And as most listeners to this webinar will know, waste management is extremely expensive and it's very difficult for cities to be able to fund it. And so we're looking at ways that we can also improve the financial sustainability of the system. I have never found a city that generates enough revenue from fees, large generators, fines to cover the cost of waste management. It's usually somewhere between 30 and 50%. Cities in Argentina today spend 15, sometimes 20% of their overall budget in waste management, which is in many cases more than they spend on health or education. But it's simply, again, because you need to keep the city clean. Citizens demand that of you. But a city in Argentina, or a person in Argentina, doesn't earn enough on average to be able to cover that really high cost.
Right. Therefore, this generating income elsewhere from the facility by selling compost, as you mentioned, will become one of the most important things.
You need to get very creative.
And that's what we're seeing in a lot of projects around the world. It's exactly that balance between what can be generated through reasonable household fees and then how much revenue can be generated through the sale of recyclables and certainly the production of product that can be sold in terms of compost or other things.
So my last question is a message to this Japanese audience.
I started this adventure as a kid with my mother cleaning beaches in Italy. This is how I fell in love with waste management, if I may say so. Now, waste has no boundaries. It is really a global problem that doesn't really look at which country you are in, and so we need to look at this globally and not locally. I've had the pleasure of working with JICA, the Japanese development agency. They do a lot of work on waste management, and so that type of support, not just financial, but even competencies and competency building, sharing the learnings. Japan has a very advanced system when it comes to waste management. Those learnings can be such an inspiring and powerful tool, but then obviously other types of support are also most welcome.
We really see Japan as a leader in environmental conservation in many ways. Obviously, the source segregation that happens in Japan and the diligence and the discipline that goes into that is something that we would love to see in so many other countries that we're working in. Looking forward to engaging more with the Japanese business community and seeing you as part of our future together.